We are on the Rift. It's going to be TSM versus reigning champions, Counter Logic Gaming.
All the off-season drama fueled the first week, but I thought I really have to win because a part of me wants them to make them regret their decision.
Nice hit by Hugi. He puts down the tomb, and that's going to put Double Lift in one.
Pretty much sucked to lose, but then I realized we have a lot of work to do.
When we first played against TSM, it didn't really seem like they had an idea of how to play as a team.
What a fight, and they have a hell of a lot of crowd control to work through here, and Counter Logic Gaming are going to take the game.
They've definitely been looking a little bit better recently. I think the second game's going to be a lot harder than the first one.
Welcome to our second day of competition in Week 5 of the North American LCS, coming to you live from the Battle Arena here in Los Angeles, California. After yesterday's games, we've officially passed the halfway mark, and our teams are looking ahead to the rest of the split. Now check out this Voidling keeping the crowd company. Our fans are out in force for our rivalry between TSM and CLG later in the day, but up first we have Energy Esports. Here they are arriving at the studio, and of course they'll be going up against Echo Fox. They're walking to the stage here. Coach Cop leading the way, Froggen trailing behind. Blurred Limes making an appearance at the North American LCS here today. Ladies and gentlemen, roses are red, violets are blue, but we've got some LCX action coming to you. Thank you for joining us. I'm James Dash Patterson, and joining me on the desk is my Valentine, Sam Kobe Hartman Kensler, and of course our third wheel, Aiden Zyrene Moon.
Speaking of which, James, I actually did go ahead and get you a Valentine's Day gift because I need you to know that I appreciate you.
Kobe,
so here you go.
Shouldn't have. And did you know that I just so happened to get you a gift as well? Here you go.
Oh, my God. So thoughtful.
Can
you pass that
Thank
over
you.
there for me, too?
Oh, it's a second one?
Oh, yeah.
You're the bestest.
All right.
Oh, my God.
Chocolate's my
I feel so loved and special. Thank you very much, Kobe.
You deserve it.
I appreciate you. All right, well, let's get a quick refresher of the standings then. Immortals is ahead of the pack, while last year's Worlds attendees CLG, Cloud9, and TSM are all tied for second place. In the middle of the pack, Energy Esports sits one win ahead of Liquid. Team Dignitas and Tip are tied for 7th, and Echo Fox grabbed the win yesterday to take 9th over last place Renegades. Coming up today, we've got Echo Fox looking to build on their win against Energy. Then it's time for the old El Clasico matchup with Counter Logic Gaming versus TSM, and we'll conclude the day with Team Dignitas going up against Tip. Despite some crazy movements in the first few weeks, though, the standings are beginning to look reflective of expectations coming in to the LCS season. We got to start with Immortals and start at the top of the bracket here. 9-0, looking good.
I mean, what can you say about perfection, in the North American LCS so far? Immortals deserve to be at this top spot. Every player is playing well, but really it comes down to the teamwork. This is one of the teams that trust each other the most of all the teams in North American LCS. Of all the teams that had so many roster swaps in the offseason and bringing together new players, some of them have worked together before, but the way that all 5 have gelled is unprecedented.
And the most important thing to me that I'm seeing from Immortals is that in NALCS, we really haven't seen a top team that has this type of consistency since Cloud9 had their first season. And even then, I think they're topping that. Because they're training for consistency, they're training for resilience, and they're making sure that every performance, they're not underestimating their opponents, and they're giving it their best. Anything less than their best is actually considered a failure for this squad. So they keep pushing themselves, despite some people being like, "Oh, the level of opponent isn't that great." They're still shooting for very high expectations.
And you mentioned Cloud9 there. Cloud9, one of our old guard teams in NA, used to be the consistency team. But looking at our old guard, TSM, CLG, and Cloud9, which of these 3 teams are we looking at that might be able to press against Immortals for that undefeated season?
Yeah, it's actually kind of cool that how it's shaken out so far this season with sort of the old household names of the North American LCS of TSM, CLG, and C9 all just under Immortals and trying to be that number 2 spot, trying to fight their way through the sort of dog pile. I have to say, if we start with TSM, this looks to be the team of the teams that are currently tied at number 2 that still have those communication issues that are pretty clear. As we saw yesterday, even though they got that win, there are a lot of times where they didn't use ultimates, to save a teammate, or they had skirmishes where one person would commit and the other person would try and run away.
Yeah, in terms of contesting Immortals, Immortals have said, to me at least, that they're afraid of a fully powered TSM, but the stagnant growth of TSM is quite alarming. It's halfway through the split, and they don't seem to be meeting their own expectations, right? They still have a lot of room to grow, but they're not growing at the rate that they thought they would at the start of the season. So TSM are a little disappointing for themselves.
Yeah, will they even reach full power by the end of the season?
That's the question.
They are making, incremental improvements. However, it is a little bit slow.
Yeah, not at the rate that they would hope to be. Next up, though, on the docket then has to be CLG.
Yeah, CLG. I mean, these are the guys. It really shows the focus that they put in the offseason on teamwork. They said this was their #1 priority with all of their changes, and in-game, they have still kept Aframu. Not only does he make these plays, but the shot calling infrastructure is there. And the mid-game rotations, the lane swap game, all of these things that we knew about CLG last season and what brought them success last season are still really there for them. And they've been building with the new guys for success this season as well.
Yeah, and then we look over at Cloud9 when you're talking about shot calling here. Well, they have a little bit of what they had last season, but the end of the season, we'll look at regional qualifiers there because they're 6-1 with high right now. And in terms of contesting Immortals, they have very decisive shot calling, and I actually think that today might be the first day that Immortals lose a game. This looks like a fully powered squad with Rush synergizing and looking fully integrated. And then Jensen has just been a monster lately. Ever since Jat was talking about bodying fools, he's been bodying fools.
Exactly what he's been doing.
Yeah, even before that. I have to say, technically, this is the first time that High's Cloud9 doesn't get to face Immortals.
Exactly. Very good point. 6-1 Cloud9 with High in the lineup going up against a 9-0 Immortals. This is quite possibly the best opportunity we have this season for Immortals to lose a game. Well, we've talked about the teams now, but I want to narrow it down to individual players. It's Valentine's Day after all, so let me know which players on each of these teams, or any of these teams rather, that you guys have fallen in love with so far this season.
I have to say, as a jungler, you're going to look to reign over. This guy is pretty much the whole package. This is everything you could want from a jungler. He does everything so well, it's almost frustrating, right? But he has 100% first blood ratio. He ganks well. He farms well. He has one of the top 3 farming numbers for all junglers in North American LCS. And he team fights well it's ridiculous.
Right. He just didn't get you chocolate.
He did, yeah.
That's all.
We're limiting this to LCS players.
I'm going to throw that out there. Didn't buy you chocolates. All right, Zyrene, hit me.
He didn't buy me chocolates either, but
we love you too, Zyrene, I promise. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
We digress.
High. I really actually think that High, and you're talking about all these in-game stats for Reignover, I think the out-of-game things that High does are absolutely incredible for a player. Not only is he a shot caller and an in-game leader, which we talk about a lot, he's also very, very flexible, and he's self-sacrificing. Because he's played 3 roles for his team. He's been called up to a role that he didn't even play before, just being like, all right, actually going back to his role originally that he played on Orbit back in the day, right? So he was basically like,
jungle, 2
mid,
like, back to
whoa,
jungle. Yeah.
Can you play this role, come out of retirement? It's like, I guess I will. And so he's so self-sacrificing, he's dedicated to the role that he changes to, and he's just a positive and encouraging player in his shot calls too. The tiny things where he's just like, oh, no, even though you died, that was your job, you're good. You'll get to do it better next time, right? I think that High just has this great thing that we call an intangible that shows up in the game, and it's not really reflected in his stats.
And it really shows how much Cloud9 value High's leadership qualities. The qualities of a great leader, they're so hard to find. They're willing to put him in any role, and they're willing to take the hit of a champion pool, because when he switches to a new role, he does pick it up very quickly. However, you have to focus on only a couple champions, so you try and eliminate as many external variables as possible so you can try and focus on picking up the new role as early as possible. You don't have to think about, how do I play this champion, because you play the same one over and over.
Yeah, because that leadership is so valuable because it's so hard to find in players, and it's something that's so incredibly hard to teach that some people have theories that you can't even teach that to people.
Yeah, very much so. And part of what allows him to hold on to those qualities as a player is the fact that he isn't going for such an expansive pool when he assumes a new role. Now, we've shared which players we think have the hottest moves in the LCS. So for our social media question of the day, we want to know, which pro would you like to be your dynamic Q Valentine and why? Tweet your responses to @LolEsports, and we'll read your love notes a little later in the show. Kobe's all mine, though. So you can now, as we send it off to our casters, though, oh, yeah, hey, can I have one?
There you go, buddy.
Thanks. As we send it off to our casters, let's take a closer look at one of the newest additions to the LCS. Oh my God, they missed it.
No!
They just missed the snub. I'm so sorry. One of the newest additions to the LCS, Energy's jungler, Moon. Take a look.
For me, I want to be known as like a good homegrown player, but overall, like I want to be a good jungler internationally, not just in NA. This view is insane. It's so good. I've never seen LA from this type of view. It's beautiful. I was definitely super excited to move out to LA and play on the new team. Being away from my family is hard, but even though I haven't done it that much, I'm pretty used to it now. I grew up in a small town in Minnesota, Golden Valley, Minnesota. I had a lot of my close friends and went to school there. I played lacrosse in middle school a lot. Lacrosse is definitely my favorite sport. My brother got me into it. As kids, we would always be competitive and play games together, mainly games. We'd play N64, Wii together. We would always buy the latest console, the latest games, and play them together. He got into League after he saw that I was, being a pro in League and stuff like that. He watches the games and everything, and after my game, he'll be like, "Oh, good job," or "Oh, next time." For me, it was season 4. That's when I started jungling, was late season 4, and season 5 I got 2 accounts in high challenge, and that was for me when it was okay, I can actually do this. I wanted to put my all into it because I know when I'm 30 or something, if I don't put my all into it, I would look back and be like, oh man, I really fucked up. I was on Team Imagine last split, around right when I joined. I had 3 really high solo queue accounts, so pros respected that. They went against me in solo queue and they're like, oh, he's a good solo queue player. I think Dominate made an AMA and he's like, oh, Moon is the best non-LCS jungler that I've played against in solo queue. And I remember I played against him and he added me after and he's like, hey, can you give me some solo queue tips and stuff like that? And I'm like, yeah, I'll trade it for your pro experience. I think the hype made me work a lot harder because I felt like it was kind of unjustified and undeserved. It was like, oh, I have to work harder to not let myself let down this hype. We were super close to beating Team 8 in relegations.
Whoa, Dodo goes in, the ball delivery cowball, and that's CaliTrolls coming up with a kill along with Dodo. Team 8 will retain their spot in the North American LCS.
I was definitely shaken. I wasn't sure if I was going to make LCS or not in the offseason, or if I had to play another split or 2 in Challenger and see if I could make it that way. I wanted to go to Korea with Selfie, who was going to be our mid laner on Imagine. I had never been out of the country before Korea, so I expedited my passport for 2 days because I didn't have one. Junglers in Korea are super low farm. I mean, when you're low elo, they'll have Mobies and Sightstone at 15 minutes, and that's it. They won't even have a jungle item. You have to help your lanes more in Korean solo queue. So I definitely learned how to be more aggressive and supportive to my team. Eventually, Team Energy came around and it was like, hey, I can put you in LCS. If you work hard and improve yourself, you can be on the team. The rest of the team came to Korea and I had a tryout, and that's basically how it happened. Playing with a lot of veterans is definitely overwhelming sometimes. There's a lot of things that they just, for them, is super basic and oh, you should do this in this situation. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. I would say the team's goal is we have to be top 3. If we're not top 3, we're failing. To have that oh, we must be top 3 or it's a failure is definitely a lot of pressure on me. Every year there's a couple of new homegrown players that are really motivated for the win. I would say it just comes down to that, how motivated they are. There's a lot of challenger players that have the talent and they just don't work hard enough. For me, if I could tell myself something when I was in Challenger, just keep working hard and make LCS, because when you make LCS, time goes by way faster.